welcome to a crash course on African American literature. Today, this crash course will take you through a very brief history of Black literature in America from its beginnings to today. As we all know, the history and treatment of people of color in America is, it's really not the best. Yeah, it's pretty much been the worst. So, we weren't really able to see the rise of African American literature until the late 1700s, with authors such as Phyllis Wheatley, who was the first published African American female poet, even though she was a slave. Among other early African American authors are Jupiter Hammond, William Wells Brown, and Victor Séjour. Along with these works came slave narratives, the most popular being My Bondage and My Freedom by Frederick Douglass, and Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. Following the end of the Civil War in 1865, we began to see abundantly more African American literature being published that critiqued the conditions and treatment of African Americans in the US, such as Frank J. Webb, who was the first to discuss the issue of passing, meaning a mixed race person who passed as white. The turn of the century saw prominent Black authors such as Booker T. Washington with his work Up from Slavery in 1901, and W.E.B. Du Bois with his work The Souls of Black Folk in 1903. Both of these authors were revolutionary in terms of what they were saying about the race issues in America at this time period. Then came the Harlem Renaissance, a period of cultural and artistic explosion for the Black community. It spanned from 1920 to 1940 and was based in Harlem in New York City. It was during this time period the poet Langston Hughes came to prominence. He famously wrote about this time period that the Negro was in vogue. Another prominent figure in this time period was Zora Neale Hurston, author of Their Eyes Were Watching God. Side note! Though Hurston died in 1961, she has a never-before-published book coming out in May of 2018 about the last survivor of the transatlantic slave trade. It was written more than 80 years ago. That's so cool. Anyway, spanning several decades in the 1900s was the Great Migration, in which millions of Black Americans moved from the South to settle in northern cities. Its later years also gave momentum to the growing civil rights movement and inspired dozens of Black authors to contribute their voice. During this time, James Baldwin, who addressed issues of race and sexuality, wrote Go Tell It on the Mountain. Baldwin was heavily influenced during this time by Richard Wright, who published Native Son, and Ralph Ellison rose to prominence with his novel Invisible Man, which won the National Book Award in 1993. Black females also began making their way more into the literary sphere, such as poet Gwendolyn Brooks with the Pulitzer Prize-winning Annie Allen, playwright Lorraine Hansberry with Her Raisin in the Sun, and, of course, the prized poet Maya Angelou with I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. In the 1970s, Black literature started becoming recognized as a legitimate genre. Several Black anthologies were published, including Dark Symphony, Negro Literature in America, Black Fire, an anthology of Afro-American writing, and the Negro Caravan. Meanwhile, author Toni Morrison was working at Random House Publishing promoting Black literature before reaching enormous success herself with The Bluest Eye, Beloved, and Song of Solomon. Morrison became the first African American to win the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1993. The 70s also saw the publishing of Roots, the Saga of an American Family by Alex Haley, a fictional account of his family's history in slavery, which was also adapted for TV. In the 1980s, Alice Walker rose to prominence with The Color Purple, which was later turned into a Spielberg film starring notable Black actresses such as Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey. Oprah's Book Club, formed in 1996, has contributed prominently to popularizing African American literature and Black authors. We continue to see growing success for Black authors today, most recently Angie Thomas with her novel The Hate You Give, a story about a young Black girl who witnesses her best friend being shot by the police. Recognizing the importance of Black voices is imperative to today's society, and this crash course only provides context for a fraction of those voices. Thanks for staying tuned, and happy Black History Month.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night.